Resolve is not a club we beat ourselves with. It's a post-it note reminding us of what is too important to forget: our well-being, other people's well-being, the well-being of the environment that supports our life. Resolve is a matter of the heart and the mind. My Uncle Chuck, my mother's brother, was a Catholic priest. He was 16 when he went into the seminary. And as a teenager, as you might imagine, I was fascinated to know how could he at 16 take the vow of celibacy for the rest of his life. I was like, it was beyond what I could imagine. So I asked him, and his answer stuck with me all these years. He said, Susan, if I thought about taking the vow in terms of my whole life, I would have never taken it. No. I take the vow every day. I take the vow every day. Wow. That was radical, and it still is, because it turns commitment on its head. It wasn't a grand sweeping gesture. I'm vowing not to get married or have sex for the rest of my life, but a small move, a very particular intention that he made many times, every day, in fact. In other words, he actively worked to bring it forward in his daily life. He brought it into his daily prayer practice. For today, this is what I'm going to do. Not some grand sweeping time frame, but for today. This made sense. I didn't understand it this way, but over time, over the years, reflecting on those words, I've come to see that this is a very present moment approach to commitment. It's an alive determination that keeps orienting in a particular direction, even when the going gets rough. It's the same as when we commit to being married to the same person for the rest of our lives. Sure, we may naively have the long view in mind and think, oh, sure, we're madly in love and we can't imagine that anything or anyone is going to tempt us. But the rubber meets the road when on the day-to-day level, we're rubbing elbows with all sorts of people. Well, that's when we're likely to be tempted. After all, we're human, we're animals. In the mundane everyday life, we're bound to feel the pulls of attraction to someone else. And if our resolve isn't clear, if it's not firm, if it's not near at hand, well, we risk breaking our commitment and causing harm all the way around. This isn't easy. It's a practice. It's a lifelong practice in sickness, in health, and in temptation. It takes work. It takes daily practice, chop wood, carry water kind of practice that suggests we orient toward a present moment kind of commitment. Let's not lean into the future. We have enough to contend with right now. Mindfulness practice is about remembering, and resolve emphasizes the importance of remembering our aim and reflecting on our actions in body, speech, and thought, and then assessing the dangers of them by feeling into and letting the heart taste the dis-ease, sense the harm and the hurt, letting it register enough that we can register the danger for ourselves and thus choose to stay the course, choose to recommit to our resolve. Resolve is a commitment to stay the course, not because we have to, not because someone tells us we need to or thinks it's a good idea, but because we feel the rightness of it or the truth of it for ourselves. Ehipassiko. It's not hearsay. We see that having had a second cup of coffee makes us irritable and speedy. We see for ourselves, felt for ourselves, that when we don't meditate, we're less kind, we're less patient, we're less skillful. Seeing for ourselves makes an impression in the heart. We can intellectually see that something is a good idea for having felt from within the body the truth of suffering for ourselves. Wisdom arises out of this combination of the heart-mind understanding, out of seeing what we are doing and how we are doing it, and feeling physically, somatically in here the effects, letting them register such that the organism, the whole organism, senses danger or safety, senses harm or well-being, and can discern how best to respond. Out of this kind of felt experience investigation grows wisdom and skillfulness. We learn what causes harm, and because of that, we learn how best to steer clear of it. The function of resolve is to remind us of what we have committed to, that is for our welfare. That is for our welfare. I'm underscoring that. It arises out of our honest appraisal and wise discernment. And it features large in the practice of mindfulness because we're talking about actively moving in a particular direction, a direction of well-being. Resolve is what helps us hold true to our aim, to our commitment to keep moving in the direction of less suffering and more ease of well-being, which means assessing and evaluating for ourselves what in our life would be useful to let go of and what would be helpful to cultivate. It means paying closer attention to where our attention flags, where it wobbles, where we get lost in the drama and the stress of everyday life, and where it feels at peace and at ease. Uncle Chuck didn't white knuckle it, but he was aware of being tempted. I remember in my mid-20s, we were at an outdoor concert in Connecticut, and we were walking by and he looked over and he saw this woman and he said, "You see that woman over there?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I could have dated her. I thought about it. I thought about it. But then I kept trying on what that kind of life would be like, what a lay life would be like, that is." And he knew for himself that that wasn't his life. That wasn't his calling. He said, "I love my life just as it is." He'd made the right decision for himself, but by trying things on and seeing what felt right and what didn't, and then honoring that with following his truth. So there was no fear of missing out. That's a big one these days, FOMO. There's no FOMO there, And that exchange also taught me something about resolve. It taught me that resolve sticks when it's coming from the heart. When we are aware in our heart of hearts, on board with what we are saying and what we are doing. That's resolve. Commitment really can't be powered by willpower alone. Our will peter out. Our energy will peter out. It can work for a while, but for longevity, the heart needs to be involved. It needs to be engaged. Resolve is a matter of getting the heart and the mind on board together. It's a matter of remembering, a living memory of what is too important to forget. We may want to practice, for example, right speech, but doing it is a whole other matter. We have to do our best to remember in real time what we are practicing, because in the heat of the moment, our resolve will be tried. But we also have to actively and repeatedly recollect the times that we didn't speak skillfully and what it felt like, what the results felt like for ourselves. Let those moments register. Let the yuck register. No one wants to feel the dis-ease of regret, but when it registers, then the heart knows it doesn't want to keep going back there. This is a hipassiko. Come and see for yourself what unskillful speech really feels like, and then consider how you want to respond the next time. Let experience teach you the ways of non-harm and goodwill. Maybe you decide to take up practicing mindfulness every day, not because you should, but because you've seen for yourself that it feels better afterwards. Even if you don't always like how it is in the moment, you notice afterwards that there's an easing of the tension, or you notice that you're a little more patient than you were before. good. Let these benefits register. Let them inform the next decision, the next choice. Let me recommit to meditating mindfully every day because it does feel better when I do. Maybe you realize that having a second cup of coffee leaves you speedy and irritable, and so you commit to having only 1 cup of coffee a day, even though sometimes you'd like to have a little bit more. Maybe it's doing something kind for yourself that you'd often skip over in the rush of your day, like making a cup of tea in the middle of the day, or like going for a walk, or spending some alone time. Resolve is a present moment approach to commitment. It's alive. It's an alive determination to keep orienting in a particular direction, even when the going gets rough. So for today, I invite you to consider, what is one small move you can make in support of your well-being? Nothing grand, but consider actually doing something or not doing something in support of your well-being. Just for today. We can do this. One day at a time, we can do this. It's for our welfare. Thank you.